long ago, when we were both young, we would run to the west setting sun, and the run was a prayer to the sun, a prayer to the sun. Long ago, when you moved away, you'd write letters to me. With love, they would say, and we'd still meet in dreams. Fly to the sun, we fly to the sun. I woke to find my body covered head to toe in scars. In each mutilation I saw galaxies and stars. I woke to find my heart beaten, tattered and alone, conjuring old memories my mind had laid in stone. I said,
covered head to toe in scars. In each mutilation I saw galaxies and stars. Memories come and memories go. A boy in the mirror hopes never to grow. And if a song would come to me, I know not what words I would sing, but the words would come from my lips. Oh, the words would come from my lips. Oh, my lips. Oh, my lips. My lips. My lips. The words would come from my lips. Oh, the words would come from my lips. If I could, I would heal you, or maybe just I'd bring joy near you. There's no one here who can fix all your sorrows. The story of loss behind every tomorrow. And if I could heal every scar, mend every wall, and clear every bar, a prayer would come from my lips. Oh, a prayer would come from my lips. Oh, my lips. Oh, my lips. My lips. My lips. A prayer would come from my lips. Oh, a prayer would come from my lips. Wondering if I've wasted my time, searching and striving, not keeping in mind that all that I have can never last. All that I have will become the past. And if what I have I'm allowed to keep, and there is no change, and time is asleep, frozen would be my lips. Oh, frozen would be my lips. lives. It's alright, it's over now, there's nothing left to say. It's alright, it's over now. And I can't get you out of my mind. I can't get you out of my mind. Get you out of my mind. Sift through the mail, grab a piece of toast and coffee old and stale. In this silence, maybe truth will be revealed. In this silence, and I can't get you out of my mind. Can't get you out of my like a stone or pebble, on nothing I depend. I know not if I could stay and watch the passing years. I know not if I could stay. And I can't get you out of my mind. Can't get you out of my mind. Get you out of my mind. Can't get you out of my mind. and out into the wilderness. My footsteps led, my body said I wouldn't stop walking till I heard some words from you. And I asked, how many seeds don't grow when you plant them in a home? And how many broken-hearted people gasping for the ground? How many songs were never written, never answered, never given? How many bodies craving sunshine were laid into the ground? A silence fell, a distant yell aroused me from my slumber, and I was not afraid to see 1,000 people there, their souls aglow in firelight, their bodies shimmered madness. They said it was my job to find some justice for the crowd. They asked, how many seeds don't grow when you plant them in a home? How many broken-hearted people are gasping for the ground? And how many songs were never written, never answered, never given? How many bodies craving sunshine were laid into the ground? In mossy thunder, churning sea, I wish that twilight offered me some modest consolation for the turning of the world. And deep into my bed I sink, and deep from my wealth I drink, and deep the currents crucify the love of all the world. Talk to God, I tried to show her shortcomings. In my hand she placed a flower blossom containing all the world. About loss, but a thief came and stole it in the night. Why, I ask, would you covet my sorrow, as if your own would not suffice? I wrote you a poem about nostalgia, but my memories have leaked out in dreams. By the sea, but that poem flew out my open window when I that is how the thief got in through my open window. Stars shine gently, moon glows softly, sun it rises just for you. May you find healing of body and mind. May your sorrows melt with the dawn. Angels guard you while you sleep. Angels guard you while you sleep. And in your dreams you'll fly away. And you fall. I'll catch you. Know that I love you. Know I love you. Know the sun sets just for you. Angels guard you while you sleep. And in your dreams you'll fly away. And if you fall, at you. I walked out on a bridge, the city lights so near. I walked through streets and alleyways, strangely not in fear. In the chilly autumn mist, I thought I saw your face, but a gust of wind reminded me. You've long left this place, you said there are lights in the darkness, but shadows in the light. Don't go aching as you wander, stumbling blindly towards the light, by the lights of the darkness. The shadows of the light. I saw a candle burn somewhere around Fifth Avenue. I saw the headlights flicker and a distant plane in view, but I couldn't see before me what had been there all along. I got tangled in the music. I stumbled on a song, but the lights of the darkness and the shadows of the light kept me moving, kept me crawling, somehow maybe towards the light. And the lights of the darkness are the shadows of the light.
Stare down at the page, the pen strokes glisten bright. Oh, they asked what I was doing, if it all was worth the fight. And in my mind cascading came a vision of the dawn, the colors they surround me, leave me naked in a fog. And the lights of the darkness and the shadows of the light are all that stand between me and that great eternal light called the light of the darkness. The shadow of the light.
I walked out on a bridge, the city lights so near. I walked through streets and alleyways, strangely not in fear. In the chilly autumn mist, I thought I saw your face, I thought I heard you breathing. But you've long left this place. time seems I am old, I am old. Together we run through the night, the night.
So we just wanted to give you some context first of where this came from, and then we're open to hearing thoughts and seeing where we go in the conversation. So the album that you heard live was written by and conceived by Jake, and it came out in the spring. And yeah, you can give him a round. And having worked together before in various ways in Providence, Rhode Island, when Liz and I heard the album, we thought, what if, or we started seeing a lot of different images and possibilities. And I had already planned to come here to be in residence, so it felt like an extra opportunity to tour a possible piece that might exist. It's always great to have a deadline of some kind. So we played around this summer, myself and Liz, with all of the objects that you saw in the show in a very collage-based way. And then we met back up with Jake at the end of August and showed him what we had. So it's a very new piece. And then we dovetailed it together little by little. It's performed, this is the 5th time it's been performed, so it's definitely new and evolving. And we performed it in Providence and then Pennsylvania, and then little bit by little made our way here through the weather this week, and are very, very grateful to be able to share it with all of you tonight in this context. The conversation we'd like to have is around the movement of grief and self-care, sort of as a framework, possibility, and of course that can stretch or zoom in as it wants to. I wonder if maybe we could start by just raising up some of the images or words or feelings, anything that you're remembering in this moment or is still resonating for you. Anybody can lift one up.
Are you looking for like one-word answers?
No, it could, no. No. Not yet.
Yeah. Well, for me, what really resonated was the puppet and just, you know, everything you were doing to make it move and the way that you were working together with it. But what struck me in particular was how it evoked both childlike innocence and childhood, but also age, and it made me think about the whole life state, like the whole stages of lifelong development. And I wondered if that was part of your intention, or
we'll answer. Yeah. Just so that anybody else have a response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I was really aware again in the puppet that, you know, it was not so much an act of manipulation, but of care. Like it felt very like caring for or an aging parent in a way that I don't think I've seen people interact with puppets before. That was quite awful.
What lingers in my mind is the image of like how you use the puppet to like shine it on the walls, and very creative to use the space as a prop, kind of, and it kind of gave an air of like the whole space having a performative function rather than just the stage.
Oh, I mean, I just really liked how you guys were able to evoke emotions of like sadness and like hopelessness through the puppet's posture, and then also in the like underwater scene, like I really liked to me that motion felt like progress, like moving away from that feeling of sadness.
The play with light reminded me of Proust's Magic Lantern, you know, where the young Marcel is seeing these shadows and, you know, projects an entire imaginative world. And then that made me think of the puppet's sort of unknown, mysterious childhood world.
Just give a raise of your hand if you saw the puppet as a child. And maybe you saw it as different things throughout.
Different things.
Yeah. And Elder, did you see Elder? Anybody, anything else? Or age, or did you see it as any one in particular, or identify it with someone that you relate to?
The overalls and work boots, very evocative. My relatives are all farm country, so that is there, but that's also sort of child and older. Also, you know, that sort of unit garment that allows you to sort of move through lots of things and work in different ways. So, and a very strong sense of groundedness. I was really conscious of the feet because of the boots, even though so much of it was, and the feathers, as a very strong contrast to the feathers, there seemed to be light. So how we are grounded and yet constantly, also the puppet's extension, right? Always reaching up and out, and what is the pull of that moves us through our daily lives. It was really, it's sort of, so that was not just child, but middle age and all of that, but because the sense of striving was always there.
Yeah, do other folks have verbs that come from so striving, hopelessness, or hope isn't a verb, but other sort of things that started to move in terms of,
As the puppet was reaching for the things flying in the air, it was sad how they kept kind of going away, and then the one bottle that he actually touched and then it went away. It was interesting how you can almost tell the puppet was like more hurt by that loss than the ones he like never even grabbed.
So like the reaching.
It felt like one way that the music and the puppetry fed on each other in an effective way was, I mean, it was definitely grounded in grief, and yet there was continuous appreciation for memory, or a sense like that, you know, the puppet, in the way that he moved very slowly, even as he was sad, he was like savoring memories, or savoring memories, even as they were painful.
That's okay. Savoring. Yeah. Thank you.
Even as they were
Painful.
I noticed a lot of like reflection in the, or the same thing was with the frame, where it seems like a sort of a window at first, and then maybe it was just from my vantage point, but you can see the reflection of the puppet in it as he's looking into it. So it's like a weird thing.
I saw the puppet as maybe possibly an elder, but who was learning as a child, so he was learning things, especially when he was learning how to cook. Like that really struck with me because of like when you're a child, you're helping you in the kitchen and things like that. So that's why it reminded me of one.
There was a scene when the puppet was facing backwards and kind of kneeled over, and he was sobbing. That really resonated with me because I could kind of like feel his hopelessness and sadness in that.
I really like the way that you kind of manipulated the puppet when it was like face down on the bed after it had lost its look. That you know, it's like you were moving the puppet in a way that was very emotional. Like it was high.
I think also with like the fluctuation of the puppet, like elder and child, and then also how it varied between, like in the beginning I perceived it as like the puppet kind of being in a way independent, and I saw you two as like puppeteers, but in the later scene when he was kind of like mixing the feathers and he kept on looking up at you guys and acknowledging you, and that struck me as kind of childlike.
Moments that are reminding you of dynamics or things in your own daily lives or stories that sort of touched something in you as we move through? Anyone willing to share any of those? Especially people maybe leaving space for people we haven't heard from yet.
I would just say it had that sort of incoherent coherence of a dream. So there was the threads of things that sort of linked it together, and then it would become something else. So when it was inside the box with the light, and there seemed to be waves outside, and then all of a sudden the spoon became a row, an oar, and then seemed to be sort of that it was a boat as opposed to something else. So it was that kind of, when you're in a state of immense emotion, you're sort of in and out of different kinds of states, and dreams are like that as well. So it seemed to sort of have that reflective quality, not incoherent, even as each image was sort of like jumping from one to another, but there was something that was coherent that was linking them. You don't quite know it at the time until the next thing comes upon you.
Do other people have ways of talking about that dreamlike state or relating to it, or that sort of emotional and dreamlike state being similar? Any other thoughts around that? So lots of wheels. You can say something? Oh, I saw.
Yeah, I can. I love when the lamp flies. I love that moment, and I think I relate this to the dream state. I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but when I think about grieving, I don't think just about sadness. I think about the whole process of adjusting to what life now means after the loss. Like, how am I going to be in life without X, Y, or Z, whatever the loss is? And I think that both, well, the music for sure, but the way that you use light and objects and ordinary objects just show like how you have to get used to everyday life after the loss. Everything changes. Sort of like, why is this happening like this the same old way now?
Yeah, I was thinking about the way that objects are actors in this piece, and that when you lose somebody that you really care about, there's that, you know, fear of losing memories, fear of losing, you know, just any kind of visceral access to them, if at all fading. And I remember once after I had lost a relative, having a dream where she was incredibly real and present as she walked with a cane backwards up some stairs and out of sight. And it was, you know, that just that moment of the mind trying to find the person, but leaving, yeah.
I thought the relationship between the two of you and the puppet was very dreamlike. Because it was like, there were moments when when you were caring for the puppet, and then obviously you were also moving it and giving it life. And it was sort of like an object of affection, and also you were kind of the puppeteers. So really kind of unsettling and unsettling and sort of beautiful and phenomenally sad, all those things at the same time.
For me, like the connective tissue between the care that you showed the puppet in the way that it was a child and it was also an elderly person, and also the theme of grief was, I think, like wonder, the sense of wonder and awe that I think one has as a very young child and also as someone approaching the end of their life, or like, oh, this is like the last autumn and the last time we see the tree. And I think grief can bring that up as well, like the mundane, making dinner, washing the dishes suddenly is suffused with a new kind of meaning. And I thought those things all tied together very well.
Thank you.
Questions, either about themes or process? Thoughts? Yeah.
What were your themes? Like, what were you trying to convey?
All the things that were just said. Do you want to talk about the creation of the
Yeah, sure. So I think I guess I'll just speak for myself, but I have a hunch that what I'm about to say is similar for you as well, but I tend not to work from like a theme down into music. Generally my process I would describe as more like bottom up, where I will have like a melody in my head or a phrase of words or something, and I'll just like, it more feels like a process of like listening really, really carefully to like what is like coming up like deep inside me or from outside me or whatever, and then just like connecting dots of other things that have come up at other times and places, and then connecting those dots. And like what's really was interesting for me in the process of making the album was that I thought of it at first as just like I'm recording these separate songs, and then at a certain point I was like, oh, they're actually all connected, and sometimes in ways that go like, oh, am I just like repeating myself? But sometimes in other ways I'm like, oh, actually there's like organic themes that are like arising and that I can now like specifically tie together with a title or with artwork or with ordering the songs in a specific way. But all of that really came to life much more when it got the visual component too. So I think there's like a back and forth between that like bottom up, and then I'll be like, oh, this is about this, and then that about will like lead to the next process. Jumping off.
Yeah, I would echo that from like a visual side. It definitely felt almost like a totally parallel thing of when we were creating the images to go along with the music. We sort of started like in a song by song way, and listening to each song and thinking about what sort of the leading emotion or tone or image was, and kind of trying to combine those things. And then when we got to the point of weaving it all together, that's when like we realized that there were through lines and there were connections, and some things that showed up here also showed up there. And so it was definitely like more of a process of discovering what the themes were, and starting from a more like just sort of like a more gut-driven, visceral place of image making and like emotion emotional response.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
So we're both answering and not answering your question. Yeah,
but really the things that people have said like have really resonated with me in terms of thematic content. So yeah, you all got it.
My original title was Dreams and Memories, and then yeah, so to me, but then it went in a whole different direction, and I came up with the title based on a process that I learned in Kaylee's clowning class of moving from the head, heart, and the gut. And so I spent like 3 weeks, like we were working on like a ridiculous amount of time with different titles. And I came to like Dreams of Loss and Light when I asked myself like, what is the main thing of this album, like from the head, from the heart, and from the gut. And then just like writing the words without thinking too much. And so I wrote like dreams, loss, and then the word light came up. And then I just wrote and that's the title. And then that title ended up leading to like the last song, The Lights in the Darkness, hadn't been written until I wrote the word light, and then that was like the jumping off point to that song. So anyway, yeah.
I think that process of listening continues. I know it was even continuing for me today on stage. Like I learned things. I was trying to think of a specific moment of resonance, but like that process of listening, it's like the piece keeps creating itself as you go. 'Cause it's like, wait, whoa, I thought this moment was this, and all of a sudden now I'm doing it, and it's also about this, you know? There was a really specific one for me tonight. Maybe it'll come to me in a bit. But we've been talking about process very much as listening versus trying to make something happen or have an idea that then we execute. It's much more of an open-ended, you know, sort of like that dreamlike state very much, you know, seeing creativity and compassion in that way of like, there's not really an agenda and my hand is here to help you. Okay, you're not going that way. You know, so how that listening happens in a kind of fluid way, I would say, is how we tossed it back and forth.
Yeah, to add one last thing on the note of like themes and title and all that. I had this moment in the recording process where I had recorded this take that where like my voice like cracked in the middle of it, and I was just like in love with it. I'm just like, this is the best like vocal, like it's totally irreplaceable. There's no way I could do that if I tried. And then somehow in the process, like that take got like deleted, and I was just like, oh my god! But it brought up like so much of like everything, and that was like, and I realized that like that was actually like that moment of like a tiny loss reflecting like all this greater loss was like kind of like the heart of the whole process to me, and that like that moment isn't in there anywhere. It's like feels almost perfect. So I just wanted to share that. Yeah.
Can I say one other little thing on that before Deborah? Yeah, I think that, so Jake and I were on tour together for 3 months a couple of years ago doing a tour of compassionate creativity, and in the first couple of days we had that moment of, well, we're doing these concerts at night or these story sharing circles, and that is when we're doing the compassionate creativity, you know, and then we went, wait a second, how are we also compassionate creativity at the gas station? How are we compassionate creativity with each other in the car? And if that's not happening, then what are we actually leaving out? That it's like, this is the show and this isn't. And that kind of binary versus we're always in this spirit of creating and caring for each other and for ourselves. And so that nourishing is a bit of what we've been looking at in process too around artist self-care, which sometimes goes by the wayside. As we all know, like when things get full or busy, sometimes those are the first things that go, but we've been trying to, you know, like even when we got here, we take 3 breaths before we get out of the car. There was a moment of like, we have to get in there. It's like, if we don't have the time right now to take 3 breaths, like what's happening, you know? So, you know, not to say that that's always perfect by any means, but that work continuing on the self just as much as it is for the witnesses or the audience.
Well, I love that idea of art as self-care, and, you know, in a university community, we just all so much need to hear, you know, if you don't have time to take 3 breaths, what's going on? But I was just going to follow up on what you were saying about listening, because the use of the typewriter, not as message making, but as percussion, and the turning up and down of the volume on static, those were such intriguing listening experiences, and really a different use of sound and the technology that produces sound.
And unplanned. We didn't say, oh, wouldn't it be neat if static could be ocean? We were going through the radio and then went, hey, that kind of sounds like water. You know, what if? So again, that like extra listening as like all the pinballs, you know, like in a dreamlike state, are resonating off of each other is part of how that was created.
I have to say I love the old technology within that, because these are also sounds we are forgetting because we don't hear them, right? So the typewriter, I mean, the actual clack of the typewriter and the key and the paper in the keys, or paper in the cylinder, and the even static on radio. You don't need it anymore. You can just go right to your station. There's something about the immediacy that also disconnects us from that journey, of which is often the material interaction that we have to have. And so it's really both in the object sort of taking presence in as storytelling things, what kinds of objects are being brought into story to make us stop and listen.
And then we lose touch with those longer term memories,
right?
With different technologies.
I was going to say on the same note how we don't write letters nowadays anymore. It's kind of a thing in the past because we have all that technology, and especially the message in the bottom, how it just drifts and gets lost eventually.
Following on that point, since sound is such an important, like, you could say it's a medium, or you could say it's like a big part. Because I, like, personally have been paying a lot of attention to lyrics and the performance. So I wonder what this play would be like if there was just music without lyrics, or there wasn't any music at all.
What lyrics are you most remembering, or are there words that are still resonating for you? I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Like, in the first song about loss, about the actual loss, it was like, I was losing her face, how she looks.
Like painted faces, or?
Just keep going.
I'm not sure, but there, I think this part was like sort of went on and on. It was maybe for a long time, but it just stuck. Like, and I remember just hearing a her, but I was thinking, what was that her referring to? And then at first I thought it was a person, but then I thought maybe it wasn't about a person after all. Maybe it's just the her is just a dream, or the her is just a thought. So, because I did not share like a particular tragic experience about someone in particular, but I feel that sometimes, especially when it was mentioned that like a smaller loss reflects into a larger loss, I thought sometimes we have things that happen in our lives, and one little thing may just pull us down, and we may think that everything else in our life just goes down with it. But then, I guess it's not what always happens in the end. Oh, and 2 moments I liked the best was one when the puppet looked into the box, and the light just shone in his face. It was as if he was opening a treasure. But then I realized he was like opening his memory, because all the things came flying past him. So his memory was sort of his treasure. And another moment was when you guys tossed him up in the air. That like
deep, gravitational. It was amazing.
In terms of trying to figure out, like trying to grab hold of something or figure out story, if you were really trying to do that, just put your hand up here versus like not trying to do that, like what was your level of like trying to make sense of it? I'm just wondering sort of storytelling wise. It's just interesting. Yeah, and how much letting go did you feel like you had to do to allow yourself to be part of the experience? Just as an interesting, like, was it like I really had to let go of a lot, or actually, yeah, it's interesting, sort of the non-linearity of it, yeah. And was there any specific moment of that sort of letting go moment or giving over to the piece? Can you specify what that was?
Yeah, when the puppet was, I can't remember what happened before, but it was kind of like free falling almost. It was right there in the corner. And I remember just being like, okay, you just gotta stop thinking about what they're doing. But no, it was that moment, and then I understood it like after I let go.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I think for me, it was when he was like looking through the window, and I was like, I don't really get this. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to symbolize, so I might as well just like try it.
Yeah, thanks for speaking to it. Other things around that letting go-ness or storytelling, and what hooked you or pressed you farther into it or further out of it?
When the puppet stepped into the box of light, I kind of took that as him dying, and it was kind of like a aha moment, like I kind of had a sense of what was going on. Yeah.
Yes, there were a lot of different movies playing of what was happening. Yeah, and that we didn't have a right or wrong. I mean, it's interesting even hearing like the box as treasure, the box as stepping into death. So I really love the sense in creativity that every moment has at least 5 interpretations, if not 1,000 million. But that, in doing it, we have a specific sense of what we're doing in a specific action. It matters, but it's not a big deal in that it's not one thing that we're trying to portray, and sort of that what's the word, like the fracturing that happens, or like refracturing, like when you put light through a prism, it feels like that is what you're kind of giving back to us in a way, because I never saw those moments before, but now they will be part of the piece and of the gravity of those moments.
The moment with the box as well struck me, and I was paying a lot of attention to the music at that part, and I noticed how, like, as the objects were kind of flying by him and he was in the box, it kind of varied between, like, very, like, major and then, like, kind of discordant and somber, and I noticed that at the end of the scene, it ended on, like, kind of a somber note. Was there, like, intention behind that?
Where the music was switching back and forth? Is that what you're talking? Yeah, it's interesting, actually. Like when at the beginning of the puppet?
No, when the objects are flying.
Yeah, right? At the end of the puppet scene, like it ended on kind of.
Yeah. What was their intention? In terms of the music, or I'm always hesitant to give my own interpretation, but I conceived of that song as like someone, like the image that I was thinking with it was like an old woman like remembering her life and like going between these memories and like the present moment or something. But like I feel like I don't want my interpretation or image to have like any more weight than like anyone else's. I feel like it's just that's what like my own lens I put on that like transition of like keys is, I guess.
From our perspective, that part is really fun to do because it's like always a little bit different. Timing wise, and because we're not like matching up to any words or anything, so I actually have found, like as we've done it, the different times, it's lined up differently at different times. So there are parts that, like when the light comes on in the box, like we were timing it at one point when that was happening, when the music did feel very somber and like kind of low, and then we changed it to like that was happening when the music picked up, and so it was actually really fun to just kind of like respond to the music and be like, oh, what would it be like to actually make this moment into like a light, hopeful moment, or like what would it be like to have this moment be this sort of like void moment, and it was the same event happening. So that's kind of fun to perform.
Kaylee, can you say again what you're talking about in terms of having action versus intention? I mean, in that sense of that there's a very deliberate set of things that are happening in a universe. The meaning of those things is as trying to be, it seems like, as wide open as possible, because the receipt of, you want to keep it as open to as many people as possible. It doesn't mean there isn't a plan, and it doesn't mean there isn't intention in terms of I am now doing this and you are doing that and we are responding, we are very present. But I think that that's just a really, when you're making work, and also making work in light of a larger thematic, let's say grief, or let's say creativity, the didacticness of that message, a message, versus a set of actions that can live in a very specific universe. It's a tricky balance to keep open, but it's also one that then I think makes so many more opportunities for us to be drawn in, as opposed to I have learned, you know, and I've learned one very particular thing, or if I don't get it, then, you know, I'm burned out.
My mentor, go ahead.
I'll just add on to that for a second, because I think something else I would love for us to talk about in class some, which I think relates to this, is I think most of us want to ground our interpretation in the author's intention or the artist's intention. But I think what they're doing in this wonderful way is frustrating that, right? and so if you're experiencing frustration, we'll talk about it.
And we think about this work as an offering. You know, it's like we're putting something into the middle of the pond and it's resonating, and everybody at the shore is getting a different ripple and interpreting that in very different ways. The mentor that I worked with in a physical theater context used the term chosen ambiguity. So it was that you are doing a very specific action, that the puppet is going to get the journal and they're going to get it, he or she or they are going to get it in a certain tempo, possibly. But it's much more about the point of view of the character doing the action rather than what I think that the puppet should do. And it's a little bit of it's very subtle, the difference, but I feel like it stretches more of my compassion and or empathy processes to go, this isn't about what I think this thing should be. It's actually much more about listening and then discovering this person or this moment. Does that start to speak to it? Yeah. And that it's okay for us to have our interpretations too, and that we're not holding on to them. You know, that it's very much an open palmed kind of process. Yeah. Last things here?
On the note of like interpretation, I remember the scene where you were holding like the daughter's portraits and the lights are like going out like kind of like stars even on the scene. The song, if I recall correctly, like the lyrics are something about like I see the city lights in your face and like how you saw them in the streets, but thinking it was you, but it wasn't. Like you've never seen them again, something like that. I'm really bad at remembering. So
that's amazing.
And so it was clear to me when I felt it was from the head. It was a song about grief, but in my heart it felt so much love, and like it made me think of what most loved, either receiving it or even having so much love for like the world or like just yeah, that was just my favorite moment, I think.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to think about how like, you know, like I write a song and like a certain like I wrote this song when I was feeling X, but the reality is like when you said that it was like, wow, that's so weird, I wasn't feeling that at all. And I'm like, actually, if you like do like the emotional excavation, it's like I'm actually feeling like 7 things at once, and like one of those things is the music that's like going to come really strongly to one person, and yeah, that's what that makes me think of.
I wonder, just are there other things floating around or questions? Anything? Yeah, please.
I have a question. Like, it's sort of linked with intention. How much did you feel that as puppeteers, like you were present in the show, like, or did you feel that you were giving yourself completely to the emotion? Because this like
puppet show and puppet and puppeteer position really tipped me off. Like, I was so frustrated to like try and figure out what was happening, and I couldn't grasp a thing.
In terms of the relationship between us and the puppet, specifically?
Actually, in terms of the storyline,
Got it.
when I looked at the scene, I would be like, oh, I know the puppet is picking up the book, but why are they making the puppet pick up the book?
Yeah, got it.
So,
the why behind it, like the reasoning behind it, got it.
So I wonder what's it like for you to be on stage, and how much do you think you were present and devoted to this?
I feel that when it's like I'm in the flow of it, I forget that I'm there. And that's what I love about puppetry for me personally. Like when I feel like I'm in that, I am fully giving my energy to this object. And that transfer feels very liberating to me. It feels like an opportunity to like step outside of my ego in a way that's really freeing. I think it's also, there are definitely moments when, oh my gosh, and also my body is on stage and everyone's looking at me, like this is very weird. Like who are they looking at? And then you have like a weird existential crisis. What are you doing? But that's just like a professional puppetry problem. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's just kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, we share a love for personifying objects. You know, we do it at dinner. We like to give. Maybe that is a sort of to see life in an object or in something that is, you know, it's a he, she, you know, this puppet, because we'll leave it out so that you can see it.
You named it?
Yeah. They're made out of paper and zip ties. And, you know, alone here, it does have a life, and it's interesting, you know, Jules said about the shoot, there's like a weight and a gravity here, and we say about a puppet that it comes to life once it has a spine, you know, once it can literally have this moment of turning around its vertebrae, so it's not just a fixed point. But what it takes to allow this to be seen as the possibility of having life just feels like a really a joy-giving process for me, because it's not alive. Like it is a floppy object that we made out of paper, you know. But to be able to give it that kind of life, both as a puppeteer or to ask an audience to give it life and to believe in that, feels like a really generous process to be in together that I just get so excited about. I can hardly articulate.
And it's interesting too, like the amount, sometimes you can get so invested in it and so invested in the life of the puppet. We did this, on Monday we did a show where we had like a technical mishap and we kind of had to pause and take what ended up being like it was like a significant break, and I was so afraid to let go of the puppet because I was very afraid to that it was gonna, if it died on stage in front of, like if I let go of it on stage in front of everyone, it would die, like that the character would die in some way, and that would like become part of the story, and I was like not ready for that to happen. So I was like, I'm just gonna stand here and make it breathe. And then I was like, this feels totally crazy. Like we were like walking around and getting food, and I was like, I have to know. So that also was funny.
Yeah, but there's definitely a commitment to extending ourselves, or I can say for myself, like extending myself into this being, you know. And if the arm goes here, I go, oh no, like that doesn't like that can't happen, you know. But breath is a big part of it, you know, and that moment of just the puppet waking up and what it is to allow the puppet just to breathe. Wow. Is, you know, a giving of life, you know.
Can I make an utterly shameless plug that if anyone here who's a student is interested in exactly sort of what this art form is, Dr. Bend, who's the chair of the Theater Studies Department, is teaching a puppetry object theater class in the spring. Awesome. And part of that will also include a residency with another artist who's working in health humanities work about sort of how do puppets externalization sort of give us a way to negotiate, particularly feeling and just the notion of embodiment sort of broadly. So I think I would encourage you that this artwork is a process of self-discovery as much as communication as well that I think can be really transformative. So sorry, I just wanted to say that again. Like, more puppets, yay, puppets everywhere.
Yeah. Do we want to close by just noticing sort of a word that might be, or a phrase that might be sticking with you either in your head or your heart or your gut? Just sort of one word that's still resonating, maybe that you're taking with you or that you're going to continue to think about or play with in some way, just as a bookend to this experience. And just hold on to that word. Does anybody want to share them just as a last popcorn?
Death. Letting go. Losing life.
Change.
Lose her. Vulnerability.
I will echo letting go.
I want the life and death thing.
Thank you very, very much for being here tonight.